Okay, ready? We're going. Welcome. Today is Tuesday, July the 19th, 2022. This is a Board of County Commissioners work session agenda. And I'm sorry we had a little glitch with technology, so we're just kind of doing things a little different way. I'm hoping everybody who's zoomed in can hear us. Can you guys say something like, Greg, can you hear me? Okay, great. Ruben, can you hear us?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, Ruben.
And Kelly, you can hear us? Okay, great. So Ruben, welcome. So today we are interviewing applicants for our, what are we calling it this day? Community Growth Advisory Committee interviews. And Ruben is our first candidate here to interview. So Ruben, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna just give you some time to say a few words about yourself and why you'd like to be on this group, and then I'll turn it over to the board for questions, and then we'll bring it back to you if you have any questions or want to do anything in conclusion, and then we'll move on. So Ruben, it's really nice to see you. Haven't seen you around for a while, and I'm going to open it up, and if there's anything you'd like to say about yourself and why you would like to be on this advisory group. The floor is yours.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I think you all know me or know of me fairly well. I'm born and raised here. My parents are semi-infamous. My mom was the first female ski patroller on Aspen Mountain. My dad is a character and well known for his radio show and being a school teacher at the Aspen Community School.
Pastor Mustard.
And I have definitely done I would say almost 2 decades worth, well, maybe not, 15 years worth of my own attempts at community projects, community engagement, in trying to bring the culture and more diverse demographics that I want to have representation here in this valley, as well as really being someone who believes in the Aspen idea and wanting to also just get that out to more of the world and more people. And so, yeah, through the work I've done with different nonprofits like Wilderness Workshop and helping them do their Wild Fest events, through my Gravity Productions, bringing local and young artists, as well as outside artists, educators, and different peoples into public platforms, as well as a lot of music and parties. I have been trying to do my part in shaping what I want the future of this area to look like. And I've traveled a lot too in that time. I usually spend about 10 months out of the year working and adventuring around the world. But Aspen is still definitely Aspen, and now I live up in Meredith. But this whole valley, this whole watershed is my chosen home forever. And I want it really, what I'm doing now with my current project, the Bayou Retreat, and some of the things I'm doing with the Frying Pan Caucus, I'm a co-chair of the Frying Pan Water Conservation Committee, and we're going to start working with the Roaring Fork Conservation. I basically want to be thinking about how to direct our entire watershed, our entire area towards 100-year and 500-year and 1,000-year goals. A lot of the things I have done, I think, are popular, but maybe don't always catch total traction with the locals who are always for it, but living very busy lives. It may not be the stuff that is the most exciting to the tourist crowd and the wealthy crowd, but I also haven't given up, because I know that the things that I am interested in are really vital ingredients to community resilience and long-term communities. And so in the realms of permaculture, regenerative design, art, culture, education, kind of biohacking, health stuff, spiritual growth. We do a lot of meditation, yoga, Tibetan Buddhism kind of retreats up here. And again, I think about what could be so cool here, not just next year, and how do we fix the housing crisis right now. I'm trying to think in terms of like 50 years from now, 100 years from now, how can this area be an example to the rest of the world of having functional systems for our food, for our insulation, for our energy? How can we have multi-generational businesses and economics that make us resilient both regionally and also give us exposure when we have access to it, to global markets, to global culture? And how can we really make the crystal gem of the Rockies and the place that really can come up with better ideas for the rest of the world? So I love what many of the classic institutions of Aspen have done, and through my work and the work that I do with my large and largely local team, I want to be a part of the next generation of those people, trying to not just make it so they have, good access to skiing and the nice lives we have here, but that we're working on spreading that unbelievable lifestyle we have to as many other sentient beings as possible.
Great. Thanks, Ruben. I'm going to open it up to the board. Does the board have questions for Ruben? Who would like to kick it off?
Hi, Ruben. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Hi, Ruben. It's Francie. I'm not sure you can see me because I don't have my Zoom on. Can you hear me? How you doing?
Yeah.
How is Pastor Mustard doing? Can you hear me?
He's on the Grand Canyon right now.
Oh, he is?
Very excited and I was supposed to be on the trip with them, but we were very busy up here at Bay Eagle, so I had to miss it this time.
Uh-huh.
He's good.
Well, I really appreciated your long-range vision of where the county's going. I think that's what we have to be looking at all around the world right now. So I appreciate that input a lot. And, I really want to thank you for applying to be on this committee, and hope things are going well for you up the frying pan. I don't really have a specific question for you, but it's great to see you.
Okay, Steve, did you have a question?
Thank you, Francis.
Can you send me the link to this meeting so I can get on? Or I'll ask Steve to.
Okay. Well, Steve's going to ask a question. John, could you send her the meeting link, please?
To my Francie at Jacoba Brothers.
Skylar's got it.
Francie@jacobabrothers.com.
Okay, Steve, please.
Well, Kelly had her hand
Oh,
up.
Kelly?
Break. Yeah.
Well, I asked you before they had their hands up, so Kelly and then Steve, or Steve, just go. Kelly.
Okay. Hi, Ruben. Thanks for applying. I enjoyed reading your application. I'm curious, in your application, I was hoping you could expound a little bit about some specific ways that you would want to make the land use code more equitable and inclusive.
As you may expect, I think for me it's about being smarter about mixed use land code. It seems like the county and the city have a lot of land use codes that are really well thought out, and probably were 30 or 20 years ago when they were put forward. I, of course, appreciate how much open space we have. But there seems to be many, many situations where, let's say somebody wants to, do some farming and do some Airbnb and has the room to have another unit, and just make more use of their property. So I'm not one that thinks we need to overdevelop all of our open spaces, but I think we could make more use of the spaces that we have, and especially in the rural areas. There's things where you can run an Airbnb or a bed and breakfast, but you have to have more than 30 acres, and it just seems somewhat dated. And it seems that anytime there's an attempt to change that, everyone is a bit scared to do so because of spot zoning. like, oh, if we do it for you, then it'll be a slippery slope and we'll have to do it for everyone. And that just, to me, seems like it will hold back, locals and people who are trying to be crafty with how to make enough money to be here and do unique things on their property, do different kind of building code, to have, aircrete domes and do different cool building designs that right now are like outside of the normal code, and will lead to only those wealthy enough to just like hold land and do very little with it to be the ones who own the land.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Greg?
Yeah, hey, Ruben. Yeah, once again, thanks. You did say something back in your intro. I wanted to just circle back to, you said you're spending 10 months per year traveling. It sounded like you said you currently are spending that. It's hard to believe you'd be doing that now with all your obligations locally. So how much time are you actually in the Valley, and what are you doing for the next 6 to 9 months?
Sorry, I had from about age 22 to 32. This was always home base, but I traveled to all 50 states and another 50 countries and got to work and adventure and do extreme sports and compete and do music festivals all over the world, but always tried to like bring that back home. And yeah, 8 to 10 months felt like how much I was traveling. Now, I would say I'm spending about 500 days a year up here at Bayou, fully focused on this project, and it's been that way since the beginning of the pandemic. And so the next 6 to 9 months is still a critical time for this business. We're doing really well. We've gotten a lot of like group sales. We're still figuring out how to get more locals and even Colorado people to come here and kind of, see us as they do like Avalanche Ranch and other awesome businesses like that as like a staycation spot. And we're really just trying to, as we go into, our next winter and our third year, which will start November 4th, 2022, making sure that this is a viable, profitable business besides just being a really cool, special, transformational one. And so it takes 150% of my time and my core team's time to make that happen. So I'll be here.
Thanks. If I could, Patty, if I could just ask another one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Regarding growth, I think you've alluded to some really interesting topics, and then I am just so gratified that you represent the next generation who's committed and engaged and loves our valley or our community. If we want to define it from here to Parachute or here to Glenwood, whatever, it's a huge community, and it's larger now than it was when you were or when I were kids. Given limited resources, how many people do you think we would want to have in this community? Upper Valley, Mid Valley, Lower Valley. I know you've talked about wanting to reach out and spread the lifestyle to as many people as possible. Does that mean there's room for, how many more do we think we want to have here? And since it's a growth committee, we're talking about growth of our population at the end of the day. And I'm just trying to get a grip on that. And I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, well, at the beginning of the pandemic, I started something called the Roaring Fork, whatever it's called, like Roaring Fork Food Resiliency something, which was basically like a Zoom call once a week with about 40, 50 of my friends, and then it kind of dwindled over time. But when I think about growth as we are, I don't know if my numbers are correct, but I think we have about 60,000 full-time residents between Aspen to Glenwood. Maybe that also includes like Rifle and Parachute. I could be off. When I think about our regional biome, I would like to include the North Fork Valley more, because it seems to me that like the big breadbasket of the state is over in Paonia, Delta, Hotchkiss. And if we think about like what we have to give and export you know, with the wealth and the culture that comes to Aspen, which kind of like trickles down to the other communities that support it with like labor, goods, and services, we do have the chance, even in short term, to, I believe, like use that distributed wealth to invest into, for sure, the housing, the, you know, things like RAFTA, the systems that it takes to like keep that unique thing that we have in Aspen that really nowhere else has, where people all over the world will continue traveling here despite whatever happens with climate. Like, this is just a place people want to be. But I would want to see more systems in place to have more of our restaurants be getting more of their produce from the North Fork Valley. I'd want to see even more investment in the housing so that we can have enough RAFTA drivers, so that we can have enough people who are like using public transportation, so that we can have smart systems, have people like working those services. And when things get really dire too, like they did at the beginning of the pandemic, and we didn't, you know, people are bum rushing the store for toilet paper and groceries. It's pretty clear that we are actually missing some really big pieces if our economy goes off the rails, if there's just a shortage in fuel, anything like that. And so I feel like at this time where obviously we're having huge growth, but we're having it in a sector where there's a ton of, I don't know, it seems to all be going into like real estate and whatever comes with that. Having the taxes and having the things go into things like more farming, more, I could see like hemp growing here, not so much for the sake of CBD, but because you can make hempcrete, which is actually quite a good insulation. And like in 2020, most of the insulation we found like is produced, that everyone uses in their home building, is produced in Texas. And when Texas has power outages and hurricanes and freezes and whatever, the insulation gets really hard to have. So like, what if we were a regional industry of creating home insulation in an area that obviously needs home insulation? So thinking of those kind of projects, I don't know exactly what the county's budget is like. I do feel like Aspen's yearly budget is like big, like the size of Boulder or something. And I know that there's a lot of programs and even like grants, you know, that the Wheeler has, and things that don't even get used. And I don't know, I take kind of a stance of sort of a futuristic but optimistic sci-fi Kim Stanley Robinson, who wrote like Ministry for the Future, kind of stance that like we just can't wait for anyone else to like develop the systems, technologies, maybe new social norms, maybe more like communal living kind of areas that are like lower carbon output. And the reason being is like, it's the right thing to do for our region and our bioregion. We are actually like so much more resource than most places in the world with our water, wind, solar, geothermal. And we are better positioned to be an example of how to do it right than anywhere in the world.
Okay, I'm gonna bring it back to the board because we have another candidate waiting here for us. So, Ruben, we're going to be making our decisions. And Ruben, thank you so much for submitting a great application. We are hopefully going to be making our decisions here this afternoon, and then we will let people know what the next steps are, hopefully as soon as possible. So good luck up there. It's probably really fun living up in Meredith. It's really cool up there. And maybe I'll have to go up there to see you, since I doubt you're coming down here as much because you seem to be pretty busy up there. But thank you very much, Ruben, and we will have somebody getting back to you.
Thanks, Ruben. Good talking to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. And yeah, and if I'm selected, I'm excited to see where it goes and see how much influence this group has. But I appreciate all of your work. I've always enjoyed working with the county and this board of county commissioners. So thanks for what you're doing, and hopefully we can work together more.
Great. Thanks, Ruben. Okay, Lydia. I think we have Lydia online now.
Yes, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
So real briefly, I'm going to start up by giving you just a few minutes to
Okay.
just give us a little information about yourself and why you'd like to be on this committee, and then I'll turn it over to the board, and then we'll wrap. We have about 10 minutes. So
Okay.
please go ahead. You have the
I'll
floor.
be as quick as I can. I have lived in the Valley since 1974. My husband and I live on the Flying Dog Ranch, and we have been here since we moved to the Valley. I've seen a lot of changes take place. I feel like I would be a good candidate to represent the lower part of the Valley, and especially ranchers. I did say that I'm a rancher and a realtor, and I have been in the hospitality business because one of the things that we have done here on the ranch, we ran a bed and breakfast for about 15 years. So I think it's important with that piece and the fact that we went through P&Z and the BOCC, which some of you probably remember me, to acquire a special use permit where we could host a number of events. And that was to modify or help pay for the overhead of ranch life here. We all know that ranches cannot support themselves, so you either need deep pockets or you need to be able to fund them some other way. We're watching the demise of ranches in the Valley. We're watching the demise of our natural resources, and I think that it is important to me to make sure that I implement as much as I can into learning more about climate change through this program, which was part of the application. So I assume you're addressing climate change as well, and any growth management that is done would be probably very effective in conserving our resources. I think that we all need to be proactive in that vein, and I would like to promote land use and the effect it has on letting ranchers be able to afford to run their property.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I have questions from the board here. Francie, please.
Hi, Lydia, it's Francie.
Hi, Francie.
So I think you were the first conservation easement in the valley, is that correct?
Yes, and I forgot to mention that we imposed the conservation easement in 1980, which was the first conservation easement on the western slope. Then we have also gone through preserving some of the buildings through historic preservation. So I have worked with the AVLT for the last 40 years very closely in regards to our property and the use of our property, as well as the BOCC. I think that knowledge helps me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so you're pretty familiar with the whole conservation thing, and it's come a long way since you guys did it, Lydia.
Yes, it has, and that is also an interesting part of my knowledge, is that I think some of those things need to be addressed in making them more current.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that you guys didn't get any TDRs. There were no TDRs when you put your land in conservation easement, and
No.
And so now people are getting a lot of money when they put their land under conservation easement. I just wanted to ask you whether you think that we should be rethinking the transferable development rights, or whether you're okay with them the way they are.
You know, the TDRs were new to me. Obviously, over the years, I've become a little more educated about them, and I see how they affect landowners. We have a situation where I have learned that, TDRs are now supposedly going for around $2 million. And when we started, they were about $300,000, maybe $250,000. So I think that also puts a big burden on the regular person to afford to buy a TDR, or what was the basis for having a TDR? To allow someone to build an extra 2,500 square feet? I can't answer that question. Mm-hmm. But that's definitely something to look at.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other member of the board's questions for Lydia? Steve, and then Kelly.
Hi, Lydia. This is Steve Child.
Hi.
One of the goals of the growth management thing, I think, would be to help preserve our agricultural lands in the county, because they are some of the flat, prime developable kind of lands in the Roaring Fork Valley are on ranch and farmland. So you have a unique perspective in that respect that we've been talking about here already. Do you have any other thoughts about how we could preserve agricultural land here in the valley? Certainly conservation easements is one way, but not necessarily the only way. And also, what's your feeling about house size in rural parts of the county? Because the purpose of the TDR program was to transfer the bigger houses into the urban growth boundary part of the county, and to leave the rural part of the county more the way it is, with smaller houses and more livable houses for ordinary people. So what is your general thought about that? The house size, what should the maximum house size be especially for rural parts of the county in your estimation?
Well, as a realtor, I see that people down valley are actually starting to downsize the sizes of their home. They don't want as much to take care of. They don't want big yards to take care of. And they enjoy their time outside doing whatever they like to do. I have seen with real estate as well in areas that are ranches that are for sale. And the first thing people want to know is, how much can I develop this property into how many homes, or big homes, 10,000, 8,000 square foot homes. Personally, I am not into the giant home, and with our personal situation on our ranch, 2 of the homes are under historic preservation, and we were given something in return, and now it seems that other people are getting more, but I'm not talking about that. What I am talking about is that we need to, of course, preserve the ranch lands, but they need to be able to be used to preserve themselves with some kinds of concessions. We got the special use permit, which is great, and we were able to do a bed and breakfast for about 15 years, and then we turned one of the homes and my daughter lives in, and took that out of B&B status. But I think being creative is the most important thing with land use. Times are changing. Water is gold, and I feel that I have a real good sense of water use and saving the water and saving the land, but being creative in how it is used. to be able to pay ranchers. There, as I said, there's no money in ranching. There's no doubt about that. And being able to support your property needs to come from somewhere else.
Okay, thanks,
Yes.
Lydia.
Kelly?
Yeah. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Lydia. Thanks for applying. I'm curious, what do you see as the role of agricultural producers in solving climate change in the valley?
Well, I think that ranching obviously saves the land so it is not being used as a home site. It is productive. The soil becomes a very important part of the growing of all of your crops. There could be some creative things, I believe, that could be done. And preserving the water that is used for irrigation is a very important part. And by not having these properties developed, and I'm not talking about conservation easements, I'm talking about having a property that can be either farmed or horse ranch or any of those kind of ag situations. But to keep them, I mean, ranching is the bare bones of what this entire valley is about. That's how it was created. And keeping it alive is important to me.
Okay. We are, Lydia, is there anything else you would like to ask the board, or so a little comments before? And thank you again for applying. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Is there any, question that you have for me in regards to credentials or thoughts that I have for growth management?
Well, I wish we had longer time for our interviews, but because we had 68 candidates, not that we interviewed everyone. But Greg, did you have anything quickly, because we have our next applicant here in the room?
Just very quickly, I would just ask Lydia, it's an interesting balance. I guess it comes down to numbers. How many people do you think this valley can support?
Well, I think, I don't really have that. Supporting the people, I'm thinking about more, to me, it's the size of the homes and the resources that are needed to create these giant homes. And we see that more in Aspen. We see it down valley. I have billionaires on either side of me, and the friendly neighbor thing kind of has gone away, and you talk to lawyers, and I feel that we can just do better with that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sure.
So Lydia, we will be hopefully today resolving,
Okay.
coming up and making our appointments, and so somebody will be getting in touch with you as soon as possible. Again, our thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right, I believe we have our next applicant, Morgan Boas, here up close and personal. So thank you. It's nice to see you.
Great to be able to be in person, but also
Yeah, we
on
like
Zoom.
that. So again, we'll give you a few minutes here to introduce yourself, and then I'll turn it over to the board. Nice
Great.
to see you.
Thank you so much, Patty. Hi, Steve. Hi,
Sorry,
Francine.
I'm sitting in a weird
Oh, yeah. My name is Morgan Boyles, and I grew up here in the Valley. My mom and dad have lived here since the mid-'70s, and I really got to benefit from so many of the wonderful things that make this valley unique, be that open space, employee housing, our amazing extracurricular and after-school programs, and just the way that this valley functions as a larger and more diverse community the more you travel through it. I went to college out in Vermont, at Millbrae College, and studied history and geography, and so I have some interest in GIS, and did a tiny bit of work for the Healthy Rivers and Streams Board right when I came back after college, which was a really interesting experience working with Mary Lackner. And now I work for the Alfred Brown Hut system. So I run the 7 huts between Aspen and Crested Butte. And those are a really wonderful community resource that has improved a lot over the years, but hasn't really gone through drastic changes. And that's always a big part of discussions with our board when we're looking at how we adapt to our ever-changing community. And through that job, I've had opportunities to be involved in the Castle Creek Caucus and work with Cindy and Ellen in the master plan, updating of that master plan, and found that process very interesting. And so I've always enjoyed how forward-thinking our community has been with a lot of these issues. And obviously I think that a lot of times we very critically look back in retrospect and come up with lots of things to complain about our community, but the reality is that I think that we will probably fare a lot better than other mountain communities because we do have a very robust affordable housing program. There are a lot of growth management things that were thought about a long time ago. Yes, whether or not they're perfect, whether or not, just hearing the discussion of TDRs, no one would have thought that that program would have evolved into what it's become, this crazy asset. But a lot of communities that didn't prepare, are in situations where they're losing worker housing so much faster and dealing with growth pressures if you're up in Jackson Hole, or even just neighboring communities like Crested Butte. So I think that there's a wonderful structure and framework for our community to work forward. A lot of it depends on city and county working well together, and then also all of the other jurisdictions going down the valley. And I think that that's the trickiest thing about any discussion of growth, is that we are one economy throughout this whole valley, and we're separated into different political regions that do not agree or have the same planning mechanisms throughout the valley. So that's really the crux, I think. But
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions, other board members? Greg?
Kelly.
And then Kelly.
Hey, Morgan.
Hi, Greg.
Hi there. Full disclosure, Morgan was the ring bearer at my wedding 23 years ago. I remember that fondly. I've known Morgan pretty much all his life. And Morgan, I'm really grateful that you are stepping up here, and it's so great. I'm so happy to see young local people engaging, because this is challenging and incredibly worthwhile. And after all, it's your future. So thank you for signing up and stepping up. I'm really glad you're here. I guess the question I wrestle with is, there are times when it just seems like we can't really get a grip on the growth issues, whether it's the incredible inflation of prices and the incredible house size explosion, and population issues. We have a population growth which is actually pretty impressive right now, even though a good percentage, or most of them, in addition to the tourists, are actually commuting in. So the question is, what are we comfortable with, and how big does this have to grow in order to be right, and where are we now? Like, how do you feel about where things are going, and what might you do to help keep the quality of life that you grew up with here? Tough question. That's a less lengthy question. I apologize for that. But I'm looking for you to help answer those questions for us.
Yes, the trickiest question. I think that it's amazing to see how slowly Pickens County has grown compared to the rest of Colorado. And I think that when talking about growth, it's important to look at what can be controlled and where efforts are best deployed, because growth is an inevitable thing, especially in a state like Colorado, where we are just growing rapidly because there's a high quality of life and increased flexibility of work, et cetera, et cetera. And then here in Aspen, increased group of incredibly wealthy people who can afford to buy into this community. I think that they're kind of separate questions where a lot of times you talk about growth and people are talking about the number of people versus talking about the water use or the amount of traffic on 82 or amount of traffic at the airport. And I sometimes find it frustrating when, the school district is struggling to hire teachers and then there's intense criticism of an employee housing project. And then meanwhile, the TDR program is just going gangbusters and we have more and more gigantic homes that consume tremendous amount of energy and require a tremendous amount of service, which does create jobs for our economy, but it puts tremendous pressures on our transportation infrastructure and is a huge climate contributor. I remember the Rick Keaty's study many years ago called Nobody's Home, which was just looking at the energy use of unoccupied second homes, which is pretty staggering. So I think that it's important to focus efforts on important parts. So whether you're looking at agriculture, it's something of how to make water use more efficient, and looking at really wonderful programs like providing land to local farmers, county land to local farmers. Like I see the work that's been done with Harper and her Two Roots Farm and things like that as being the most positive way to use county resources and local land versus then you look at other places where it's just water being used to grow hay, to grow tax exemptions. That's a different use of our community's resources. So yeah, growth is a very tricky topic, and I think that it's been really interesting reading some of the materials from lots of the community members that are online, and it's an evolving question and one that I definitely want to learn a lot more about because it's there isn't just a single answer, I guess. So,
all right. Thank you, Kelly. Please. Then we have to. Kelly, go ahead.
Hi, Morgan. Nice to meet you. And thank you. Your answers have been very thoughtful. I'm wondering, I understand the Braun system participated in a TDR transaction. And I'm curious if you're, as the transactor, like what your thoughts were about that and any takeaways, or if you had any thoughts of like, gosh, this program should be different in this way or not.
Yes, we were a huge beneficiary of years ago. In 2006, we'd received donation of a piece of property that we'd thought about developing as a hut site up at the headwaters of McFarland Creek. And it was a really interesting parcel because it three sides of it were wilderness inholding on three sides. And so it was a big debate of whether or not we develop this parcel, whether what impacts it would have in that area, whether we'd be bringing more people, more snowmobile traffic to the wilderness, et cetera, et cetera. And there are a lot of really thoughtful people on our board who had a lot of very long discussions, endless discussions back and forth about whether or not we would develop it or not. And then after going through COVID, we saw, and then seeing the spiking costs of TDRs, and of course being approached by many of the several hundred realtors in the Valley, it was a way that we could secure an endowment for our organization so that we would be able to be more stable in future uncertain times. And so it was interesting taking, I think in that specific case, it was a parcel that, there was no way that would have been turned into a single family home. I think that's a little bit of a crux with some of the TDRs is if you're taking, a piece of property up in Rudeye Shores that could have been a single family home and then jacking the value of that land up to $2 million, all of a sudden something that a couple of years ago someone would have been able to buy at a high but affordable price that's a little different than, this was an incredibly remote parcel. But yeah, it was a very interesting program, and the huts were very lucky to benefit from it. And it was very interesting to learn about the program through that process. So.
Okay, Francie, did you have something short, because we
Yes,
need?
I just
sorry.
have a quick question for you. Hi, how are you?
Hi.
So sometimes we hear about a little bit of tension between open space and housing.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if you would speak to that for just a moment, if you have any thoughts on that.
Yes. I think it is interesting because the county does have so much land, and then also, I mean, I guess there are two questions there. There's the use of land and use of funding, since open space receives more funding than housing.
By quite a lot.
Yeah, by five times as much or so. And so in terms of land, I mean, the county has tremendous ability looking into the future to potentially use some pieces of land to help with housing. And I mean, we do reach critical things in our community where when you don't have, especially as people age in employee housing units and just as free market units become more unaffordable, at what point does a teacher or, I mean, pretty much all of I'm 32, and pretty much all of our friends live in affordable housing, be it Burlingame, ABC, my wife and I are very lucky to live in affordable housing as well at ACES. So I think that more focus could be put on collaborating with the city on affordable housing programs, because, I mean, as someone who...
Perfect statement after today.
Well, yeah, and also as a community member who I want to live here for the rest of my life, and trying to see that path forward. Yeah. I would, of course, be advocating for affordable housing. And I think that with open space, I would also advocate for being careful that with the open space that we do have, not letting there be a creep of how it's used, be that with the North Star or other very popular places, that you try and keep designated open space very special, and then look at other places where you could be more flexible to have employee housing. And going back to the example of the Harper and the Two Roots Farms use of county open space land, I think that is amazing. It's just such a positive benefit because it provides jobs for a number of people. It provides tons of food. We use their CSA, and it's such a community benefit, and it's not sort of just like one of these it's a wonderful way that the land is being used, I guess. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
Mark.
you. Yeah, it's a conundrum for you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. And as you've heard, we're going to probably we will be wrapping this up this afternoon, and we'll have somebody get back to you. But thanks. It was really nice to see you.
Great to see you, Patty. Thank you.
Yeah.
Steve,
Right, because I thought I saw Debbie Kelly. Skylar, is Debbie Kelly online? I thought I saw her walking in. Isn't she next? No, Max. No.
Bliss
Yeah.
is next, and
And
is
he
online.
should be on. And I saw Debbie out in the.
Yeah, Max is on.
There she is. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
Debbie, why don't you come in and have a seat? We are just getting ready to pull Max up. Look,
Good to see you.
it's freezing everywhere in
Right
this room.
underneath the air conditioner that's here.
Okay,
There's the air
Max,
conditioner that I
welcome.
need to- I need to
We
go.
have,
Thanks for having me.
hi, we have you online. I'm gonna start out by giving you, our interviews are short. They're only about 10 minutes, and we'll give you a few minutes to open up and just give us some comments as to why you'd like to be on this committee, and then I'll turn it over to the board for some questions.
Sounds great. Honestly, sometimes I smack myself for thinking that this is what I want to do, but I can't help myself. I don't have a ton of time, but this is one of those things we all have to create time for. I'm born and raised in this valley. I love this place. I don't see ever leaving here. I'm raising my kids here. We love everything about it. I've lived in Pickens County for many years, but I live in Carbondale now because it's the only thing I can afford. And I just love this valley. I also think I bring a different type of input to this because I'm a bit mixed. I mean, if you think of this I don't want to think of this situation as being two-sided, but often you hear about this thing as being two-sided from a development standpoint and a non-development standpoint. And I think that's a little wrong to look at it that way. I think we all are a part of this community and we all have to have some sorts of development. So how do we do this smartly, logically, fairly? And obviously that's what you guys deal with all the time. So I am a builder. I bought my father's business a few years ago and we've been building in the valley. My parents moved here in the mid-60s as hippies, lived on the backside of Aspen Mountain on Little Annie Basin for many years in little cabins. And in the 70s, they decided that Aspen was getting too crazy, so started moving down valley. So I spent a great deal of my time down valley, as far down as Silt, Carbondale. But then we spent so much time there as I was a child that ended up in Woody Creek in the trailer park for, let's see, I think almost 16 years. And loved my time there. Actually was the vice president of the HOA there when we went into partnership with APCHA and went through the ownership changes there. We were able to buy our own proper land and stuff. Anyway, I know we don't have a lot of time. Short and simple, born and raised here. I love this place. And as little time as I have, I want to make sure that I make as much of that time into making sure that this place can be great for my kids and their kids' kids, because I got a feeling they're going to stay here, and for everybody else. And let's face it, this, for all of us who have lived here a while, this place has changed a lot. And as much as most of us would love to have back what it was, we can't do that. There's no taking time back. And we also can't have that NIMBY attitude or that attitude of, I'm here and now this is what it is and lock it down. But we can't have what's going on here either. Somewhere there's got to be some in between where we can do this logically and smartly. And I think you guys have laid a lot of groundwork. I think planning and zoning has laid a lot of groundwork over the last several years. There's a lot about the existing land use code that I think is wonderful and I think very well thought out. And I think we should be careful not to throw too much of it away or change too much of it, because I've actually found, and I say this from a position that I'm usually somewhat fighting against it for my clients, but the more that I work on these issues, the more I realize it's incredibly well thought out and has some really good policies. And they probably need to be tweaked a little bit. And what we need is an advisory committee, just like we're talking about here, to really brainstorm this thing and come to some consensus. I mean, let's face it, I can't come to you and tell you I know I have the answers, because I don't. And nobody does, and that's why we're forming this committee. You guys know this, the bureaucratic side of this, so much better than I do. What I know is, as a person who's lived and enjoyed this valley for my life, and also as a builder. And so I hear kind of both sides of this debate, and I think I could be a good addition. I'm a good listener. I put that input in when I know I have something that I think is worthwhile to say. And otherwise, I'm happy to sit back and let the smarter people in the room give me some ideas to feed off of.
Great, thank you. I'm going to turn over to the board. Kelly?
Hi, Max. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Yeah. What do you think about climate change and what opportunities do you see?
Well, so climate change, I mean, it's pretty obvious that it's getting devastating more and more by the year. I mean, you just can't ignore the statistics of it. You can't. And so I didn't really mention this, I have been involved with the county pretty consistently over the last 10 or 15 years with the work groups that you guys have put into session. And also directly, I worked a lot with Brian Paul when he put those smaller work groups together. We did the energy team. We did, I think those were there were 5 or 6 of us on that energy team. We did the matrix. So I've been involved in, I think, 3 or 4 committees, teams, whatever you want to call them. Oh, I just recently was on the one for carbon with Cindy Hooven and team. And so I have a lot of basis for these, and I've worked with a lot of the players. But yeah, I mean, I hate to sound political, but anybody that doesn't agree with climate change is going into this thing with their eyes closed. And I mean, I can take all the statistics that we see easily, but I can also take the things such as, growing up in this valley, we all talk about it now, right? We always used to have afternoon monsoon. That's gone. What's the reason for that? Is it cyclical? I guess it could be argued, but something feels different. And it kind of feels like, now that I've lived my life all up and down this valley, I kind of feel the climate from down valley shifting up valley little by little. So I can't deny that there's climate change going on, and I want to be at the forefront of looking into that. And I think some of the work that we've already done, that I've already done with Brian and team, has really started investigating that. And you know, what we said on those committees all along is we want to be at the forefront of this. As much as we keep looking to other municipalities, you know, we're looking at a lot of California stuff for ideas. We want to be looking at them for ideas and brainstorming with them. But I mean, we want Pickton County to be the first ones to do X or the first ones to do Y, the first ones to say, hey, we did this and it's going to make a huge change and it's a great idea. We want other people to be following us, is the way I feel. We have the resources to be able to do that, I think.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions here from, okay, Steve? Oh, sorry, Greg, I didn't see your hand, but yeah, because we, again, are running along.
Max, since you're in the building industry, you've probably worked on both large and small houses. So one of the issues that this committee will be dealing with is the fact that houses above a certain size that was identified at about 7,500 square feet, exponentially higher, larger than that, they use more and more energy per square foot for the house. So even though I'm sure you're aware you could build a really energy efficient house that's very large, but then it takes a whole staff of workers to maintain that house once they get above a certain size. It's not the homeowners maintaining the house. They have a whole, it's like running a business. So taking all that into consideration, what do you think would be a good figure to land on for the county to set as the maximum house size? And it might be different for different parts of the county too, for the rural versus the urban growth boundary area.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I don't have an answer for specific. I think we really need to look at this as a team because, I mean, let's face it, that's a really tough juxtaposition. And what you brought up about, I mean, exponentially the size of the house creates so much more energy. We've seen those numbers. We had REG run those numbers, and looking at them, I can't remember, I think it was around 7,800 or 8,000 square feet or something, where it was this huge spike. And we tried to figure out exactly why, and I think we got to the bottom of it to a certain extent. But you also touched on a good point that, you know, it's a hard juxtaposition too. These large homes are employing a lot of people, which is a really great benefit. But secondarily, it's already also putting a lot of people on roads, and sometimes on rural roads, and wasting a lot of carbon. I mean, when we looked at it, the carbon footprint, by far, the biggest carbon footprint that we found in building was the commuting of the workers. You know, it wasn't getting the materials from out of state or even windows from out of country. The huge number was commuters. So I guess I'm kind of talking a little around in the circle, but I don't know that answer, but that's why I'd like to be in this conversation to figure that out. And like I said, I think land use code that's existing did a really good job of thinking of all those things, and I think we just need to build upon them. I am not one that thinks we need to scrape and start from scratch, because I think there's a lot of good there from a lot of really smart people that saw this. I realize times have changed some, and maybe we need to restrict some more. Not maybe, we certainly do. But I'm not one of these people that's going to come in, and I don't think it's my profession that's saying we need all houses to be 3,800 square feet, and that's the right size. I think we have to just look at this smartly. And I think if we end up leaning towards the way of allowing some areas to have some larger homes, and I don't know what that is, I think our rent programs and that sort of thing are a smart way of doing that. Number one, we have to keep what we've got in what we just came up with last year or the year before it was, with making sure of funneling all those through our matrix, that you have to do certain things. And secondarily, I hate to say it, and I hear all my clients grumble about it, but there's got to be a certain point where if we allow those things, that's what pays for other things. That's what pays for solar on the side that, yeah, sure, they got a little bit bigger house, but we've got this huge solar array somewhere else, or we've got affordable housing, or we've got something that's a bigger benefit than the downside. Because, you know, it is tough. We don't want to see all these huge mega mansions, as everybody calls them. But there are getting less and less properties that are those. And if we can make somehow that we benefit off of those, maybe we can still afford to have a couple of them if it's a net positive for us. And that's the big thing, is if we can make sure that it's net positive, not a net neutral, a net positive.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on to Greg. Greg, short and sweet, please, because we're going to be moving on to our next candidate who's here.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Max. Appreciate it. You kind of hit the nail on the head. I think it's going to become more dire than you have outlined here, or that we have. And the decisions are going to get a lot tougher. It's almost going to be a luxury, in my opinion, to talk about reducing house size. And I'm just wondering if you're prepared to be on a board and on an advisory group that has to make really tough decisions. And this is driven by climate and the need to reduce carbon, to electrify. Are you prepared to be on that board?
Absolutely. And I understand my profession might make it sound otherwise, and I'm sure my tendencies obviously are to protect what I do for a living. I mean, I can't deny that that's not there, but there's a greater goal here than keeping my business going and keeping my family fed, which this valley has done a great job for me for. But I mean, this is all we're all here for, is to continue this on for generations. And not just our valley, but every community should be talking about this, whether it's house size or just carbon footprint or all of those things together. And I think every big community is. Like I said, I want us to be on the forefront of this.
Great, thank you. So we will be addressing our appointments here this afternoon, and somebody will be getting back to you as soon as possible. Again, our thanks for taking the time to apply and taking the time to allow us to interview you. We appreciate it. Thank you
all very much. Appreciate
you.
all you do for us.
All right, Debbie, we have Debbie Kelly in the room, so we're going to set her up to join us. Hi. It's nice to see you here in person. We appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to start off. Just give us a little explanation of yourself and why you would like to be on this committee, and then I'll turn it to the board.
Okay. I'm actually semi-retired, so I've got some extra time, and when this email came across, it's like, I could do that, you know? Lived in town since the early 70s. I've had a business for 45 years. Currently, we're in process, it's sold, but I'm still helping the new owner through the transition process, so I'm helping a little bit, but I've got a little extra time, and I just thought this would be great. I've lived here a long time. I, kind of know the environment here. I think that the growth control we've had and the growth policy we've had has been great. I think it can change a little bit, but I wouldn't see changing it a huge amount. It's certainly when you drive into the Pickens County and you have all this open space, and you see that compared to like Eagle County or Summit County, where it's just like, condos and houses everywhere. You really appreciate that. And so I'd like to see us kind of continue along those lines, but at the same time, we have to address development. There can't be no development. As a landscaper, I've seen the waste in houses, wasted water, wasted everything. As the gardener, you kind of know what's going on inside, talk to the housekeeper kind of thing. And just how much waste can happen on these big houses. I'm hardly ever there with my crew and no one else shows up. There's always the pool person or the housekeeper or just whatever, the person to paint this or fix that or, clean the gutters. So these big houses do require a lot of people and a lot of traffic and stuff like that. So, but at the same time, that's kind of what attracts people to live here too. And they are kind of our bread and butter. They're the people who pay our bills. You know, it's the people who I have paid my bills as a landscaper for 45 years. So, you know, there's got to be a balance there. And I don't have like great ideas about, well, we should do this and this and this. What I think is I'm a good listener. I'm really a reasonable person. I'm not way out on one end or the other. And that I like to come to consensus on stuff. That's kind of always been my, you know, thing when there's differences of opinions is where can we agree, you know, and make something happen. So.
Thank you. So, questions to the board. Francie, please.
Hi, Debbie. Thank you so much for coming.
Sure.
So, as a member of this board, you would be making recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners for us to make some changes to our land use code. And so there's just no question that some of these changes are going to negatively affect some of the people who live here.
Right.
And so there's going to be some strife about it. And I'm wondering how you feel about being a contributor to that, to the recommendations that could affect people's bottom line and the industry that they work, the property that they own.
Well, you know, I think as long as I can explain the point of view of the committee and, you know, be somewhat in agreement of it, it's not that big a deal. It's not like right now, because I'm retiring, I'm kind of getting away from some of the wealth and excess that I've witnessed over the time. So it's not like I'm going to be working for someone who's going to be all mad at me now because I'm not working for him anymore. I'm still
Good point.
an employee. I'm still working for the Aspen Skiing Company in the wintertime, so I still am working there. You know, so, but I think that comes with the committee, but it's something that has to happen. I feel like this is a great opportunity and something that really should happen.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you also do mountain rescue.
Yes, I've been a volunteer for Mountain Rescue for 35 years. So.
Yeah. Greg, please.
Yeah, Debbie, I was just thinking about how, you know, as a mountain rescue person, as a powder tourist person, I think if anybody can handle adversity and stress under pressure, is probably you. And I appreciate you for your applying. It's really great to see your name on the list, and I'm really enjoying hearing what I have to say. It may get more difficult than having to deal with the big monster homes and the distant wealthy people. It might come down to conversations about growth in general, you know, where it will mean more or less affordable housing, more or less, you know, growth that could arguably be called development of community assets, and balance with natural resources, which don't seem to be getting any more plentiful. So I'm just wondering, how do you think you'll handle, having to, maybe generational divides, it occurs to me. It's going to get interesting. And I'm just wondering, are you prepared for that? And what do you think? It'd be great to have you on a team that works on this.
Well, you know, I certainly see like the woman who bought my business and her employees, and she's very unhappy with the fact that she has to live in Carbondale. She grew up here and she would love to live here, but there's just no opportunity for her. And in some way I feel bad because I'm taking up an employee housing unit and moving into the retirement phase. But I built that house. I've lived there for 20 something years. And I don't really want to give it up. I've got my garden and, just whatever. So it is a hard thing to kind of deal with this new generation of people who, as my cohorts all retire, and we're moving, our businesses are getting bought by younger people, and they're they're commuting from further and further away. She has an employee who lives in Newcastle. Another employee who lives in Carbondale. She lives in Carbondale. So yeah, it's interesting. I think it is going to be tough, but because they want to be able to live here. At the same time, you know, climate change. There's this great excess that's happening that really has to be reeled in. And I really feel like we can't just let these big monster homes keep getting built without some give back, some trade off, you know. They need to take care of their own energy needs, be it, you know, solar or whatever. They need to not be such a drain on the economy, but at the same time that they're a drain, they're actually a plus for the economy, but they're a drain on the resources. And so we have to find that balance between draining our resources and then continuing to have an economy that, you know, has served this community so well. And, you know, construction being a huge part of this economy.
So, Steve, and then we're going to wrap.
So Debbie, good to see you. I was thinking back when we first met.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was the day after I was first elected that when we first met
Oh, okay,
in
yeah.
St. John's. So how familiar are you with the transferable development right program? And because that's one of the things the committee will be looking at.
Right.
Thinking of making changes to that program possibly, and do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I know what it is and how it works. You know, I also know the price of a TDR has, you know, fluctuates and has gone up with demand. I've always liked that program and thought, you know, yeah, let's quit developing maybe on the backside of Aspen Mountain and put it more where there's other development. You know, I could see that process and that program might need to be tweaked a little bit. I think we have to figure out what is our goal for growth. You know, how much can we handle? I mean, we're obviously in a valley with a limited amount of buildable acreage just by the fact that we've got surrounded by wilderness and mountainous terrain that doesn't allow development everywhere. And I love the fact that we have all that when we get to, I mean, regardless of how big Aspen gets and how developed the valley gets, we still have this great backyard, you know. But yeah, TDRs have been good, but maybe it's time for TDRs to change a little bit. Like I said, I don't have great answers. I want to hear what everyone else comes up with and then see how we can massage all that to come up with a really, you know, good growth program.
Right. Thank you. Sure. So again, we've got staff waiting for us to finalize our decisions, and somebody will be getting back to you. And again,
Okay.
Debbie and I, she was one of my first neighbors when I moved into the trailer court.
Yeah.
So way back.
You're still there, right?
I'm still there in the same house, same trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's nice to see you.
Thank you so much, Debbie. All right. Thank you for having me.
Okay, before we start on this next one, I'm going to do a 5-minute break. Sorry, I have to. Grassroots, we're taking 5. Thank you very much. It's Tuesday, July 19th. Oh, it's going to be snowing before we know it. 2022. This is the Pickens County Board of County Commissioners work session. And we are now at the point where we are ready to make our final decisions about our new growth management, community growth management advisory, community growth advisory committee. Geez, we keep coming up with these titles. And we haven't even decided on how many, so I'm going to start there. Is that good? So we've had a range of 10 to 40. Actually, we've been trying to determine what would be a good size. And staff, I think, is kind of recommending around 25. And we've had some board members who want to go as low as maybe 15. But I am going to ask Kara a question. Do we have any idea, or John, with the number of people we had on our airport final group?
I came prepared.
I know you did.
25.
So we had 25. Did we see any attrition to that group from where we started?
So that was the final visioning committee, had the 25, and we saw very little attrition from that group. I think the final vote had 21, if I recall correctly. However, the board had appointed, I think originally, 116, does that sound right, to various committees. We did have significant attrition along the course of the process, and so we could go back to final votes of those committees, but
okay.
The board's probably aware that there's some criticism that not all 116 voted on final recommendations. And that's because, as you do have a long process that is time consuming, which this will be, you'll have attrition of volunteers.
So Cindy, when you created the miscellaneous groups for growth management prior to this one, I think you had a good turnout and a not so good turnout, and maybe then a good turnout.
Yeah, we had between 18 and 25.
So I'm going to ask the board, I'm going to put the number 25 out there for our starting point. And I think that obviously the 25 with the airport final visioning committee didn't stand in the way of getting decisions made and the job done. So I don't think that's asking for too many people to try and sit at a table. I think we might see some attrition, but maybe not. She's counting the number of seats at the table.
Yeah,
It'll be
so
in a bigger room.
I was doing the same thing.
Yeah, this, if every seat here were full, that would be 12 people. So 25 seems like a lot for people to get the word. I'm willing to go
Yeah.
with 25. I'm just saying for everybody to be able to speak.
Somehow they got it done at the airport, so.
We
to clarify-
did use this for the airport visioning committee. You can squeeze in closer.
So I gotta tell you, Kelly's waving her hand, so I'm gonna let her.
Oh, thanks. I'm just wondering, it's not possible to see people in the room. Ordinarily we can, and I don't know if that is manageable.
Oh, technologically today?
What's that?
They have the grassroots feed.
On TV they could, if she turned on her, I guess she's not in.
Grassroots feed is supposed to be coming through.
No, she's not.
YouTube today
It's not on any of the
specifically,
screens.
so it's actually,
Oh,
it's live now. It is on YouTube? Okay.
I think she means on Zoom.
Kelly, are you talking about our meeting we're having today or future growth management meetings?
I'm talking about the meeting right now.
Oh,
I can see people sitting at the table.
well, that's New Jersey.
If she goes to YouTube,
No, it's
she
not.
can see
Nobody
it.
sees
Ordinarily, the grassroots, there's a square with the grassroots camera tracking the conversation, and that's
Yeah.
not effort.
Do we have the
That's true.
grassroots?
We can't see it on any of the
I
screens.
know,
in
do we
here.
need,
It's running live and it is now working on
is that a
YouTube.
problem right now?
Add it after it started.
So Kelly, when we had technical difficulties at the beginning of the meeting, we lost the camera feed into this Zoom meeting. I apologize. We normally have it. We have like a comedy of errors, and I think we had another computer go down, so we lost our guest computer too. So
All right, we'll forego.
I apologize. Yeah.
No worries, it's not your fault, thank you.
Okay, so Kelly, how do you feel about 25?
No bigger.
Okay, Greg and Steve.
I would be good with 25.
Okay.
There's going to be lots of thoughts in the room, but we want to get lots of thoughts and different viewpoints recommended. There is the possibility that maybe parts of the committee could specialize, like one group maybe could tackle the TDR issue, another could tackle the GMQS, kind of become experts on that and then report back to the main group. And have you put any thought into that as a possible thing, or do you want all of them to hear all of the information and discuss it all together?
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about what that looks like, and I think at least for the start, as we really get the committee off the ground, we really want everyone at the table together. Now, we don't know what the process is going to be, and there might be some subgroups, but at the end of the day, we don't want to isolate and create independent committees. We really want everyone at the table, hear all the information together, and let them have the conversation of how they want to digest this information and come up with recommendations.
Kind of like we did with the airport. We had all these subcommittees that grew into the final advisory committee decision. So, okay, Greg, real quick, is 25 okay? Because then we're going to go on to a point.
I would be okay growing it to 25, but I'd actually like to start with a slightly smaller goal because I have a feeling we're all going to be, haggling back and forth. So if it gets as big as 25, fine. But I'd rather look at the names and numbers and see how it shakes out before we commit to it, because we may decide 23 or 24 is fine.
We may decide that 68 is fine. And before we move any further, I want to say the reason we've been having these computer glitches all day is because this is Skylar's last day with us, and he wanted to leave us with a memory of him before he moves on to much more fun things like Barcelona.
Thank you.
I thought you were going to say it was lightning.
No, but the gondola is still running, so there's no lightning, at least right not now. Okay, so let's go towards the list we have in front of us, the matrix, the spreadsheet, where we had the top group was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with 5 votes. Correct?
Yeah.
So is the board okay with those top 5 that all got 5 votes?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing thumbs up since we all voted for them. Kelly, Greg? Okay, so we have 5. Moving along. Kara, please jump in if I am taking over your job responsibilities here.
You're doing great.
Okay, next. The next group had 4, and so that must be
It's 10 people.
11? 10
10
people.
10.
So the only question I have in those is Sierra, because we just seem to be, I think, a little heavy on the climate action. I think everybody who applies is aware of that and all that, but we seem to have too many people who specialize in it. And she wasn't in my top pick, so I'm just saying that. I'm okay if the board is comfortable with that, but I think that might be a position, her name might be one we might want to wait till we get to the end of the day. Yeah.
I wanted to speak to the thing about the environment. So when they gave us what they thought was the equal breakout, I think it was 12% for each group, for each sector. Mm-hmm. And so if we take her out, I don't think we'll have that, at least in this top group. Because really we have Mona and
Brian Flanagan. Brian
Hennigan,
not Flanagan.
Hannigan. So I just wanted to say that was something we wanted to definitely have, a sector from environmentalists. So I don't want to penalize her for being an environmentalist.
Okay. So if does the board want to leave her in that next pick? So we have our top 15.
Yes.
Yes.
What's the question now?
Are we going to keep her in, Sierra, for the top 15?
I'd also point out her experience on one of the caucus boards and with master planning in the county.
And also, she's
And
female.
you're talking about Sierra Flanagan?
Yes.
Now, Sierra labeled herself as a climate activist, and I would put her in as an environmental representative more
So
than,
you want to keep her in the top 15?
I would keep her in the top, yeah.
You guys there?
We've got 15.
So that gives us 5 more to start
So
to get to 20.
You did ask about too many planners, and I kind of think we have too many planners on what I picked the top 25, and I have 1, 2, 3, I think 4, I think there were 4 planners in sort of in the top.
No, I thought there were 2.
We have Glenn and we have
Jessica.
Jessica, Glenn, and Joe Wells. So 2 of them live on Little Annie
yeah,
Road,
3.
Little Annie Basin.
Yeah,
2
Joe
planners.
Wells is kind of at a totally different level than Glenn Horn.
Who? What? Say that again. Who is?
Joe Wells.
Joe Wells lives further down,
On
Castle
Castle
Creek,
Creek.
in Castle
Mm-hmm.
Creek
Yeah.
Valley Ranch.
I thought there were 2. You're right. There are 3.
But they all have such a huge amount of experience that's why they could be invaluable to the committee.
Yeah.
They don't have a huge steep learning curve to understand everything. They're already there. And that would be, I think.
Why don't we leave them in for now and see how it shakes out?
Oh, here's the other environmental person, Chris Minges.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be 3 planners and 3 environmentalists, basically, because we forgot about Chris Minges for the environment, for the Nature Conservancy.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got the top 15. Okay, now, the next group with the 3 votes was 5, so that would give us 20. How is the board feeling about that next group? Greg, your hand is still up. Did you want to comment?
Oh, if you could just rattle some names off, that'd be great. I'm still trying to figure out how to find it.
We have Doug Throm, general contractor. Forrest Jacober, what are we calling him? A rancher builder.
Yeah, rancher builder's fine.
Jennifer Olson, John McBride Jr., Nicholas Chan, who is an architect from Carbondale. I'm okay with the group. John McBride.
It's Junior. That's Jono.
It's Jono. He's going to be busy the winter.
Does he travel with the ski team still?
I believe he does.
Well, he was Bodie's coach, but he's not still racing, right?
No, Bodie, no. Well, he's fun racing, but not.
No, but he
Yeah,
was Bodie's personal
I don't
coach.
know, but I'm just that was a concern to me. But he did get 3, supported by 3. So does the board have any input onto that, or are we good with the next 5?
You know, I have to say, I'd love to talk this out a little bit. I'm comfortable with Doug Thrum. I've known him for many years.
Okay.
He's been here so long that I think he's got a pretty clear perspective, and he does represent. He does a lot. He's been in building his entire life here. I don't know Forrest. I'm a little concerned that he's Francie's son. I have problems with that. I've got to tell you, I'm not super comfortable with family members coming right in to advise that closely, but I'll let you all weigh in on that. I have to say, I wasn't particularly enthusiastic about Jennifer Olson. It's the difference between what she said and talked and what she actually does, to me, was pretty vast, and I'm just not really comfortable there. I don't recall, don't know anything about Nicholas Chan, but I like that he's coming from the lower valley. And so I'd like to hear what other people think. I know John O, I think if he signed up for this, he knows what the commitment is, and I wouldn't rule him out because I wouldn't speculate on how much time he has. So I think I'm ready to start becoming a little bit more picky. as we go into the rest of this group. Thanks.
Any other comments on that next group of 5 that got 3 votes? I mean, there's got to be some give and take here. I actually think Jennifer Olson's interview was great, and I like to believe applicants when they come in that they are going to represent what they say here in the room. Kelly?
Problems with the mute. Yeah, I would support Jennifer and John at this cut, and then maybe look back to the other 3 as we work through the list. It's a little hard when we haven't interviewed everybody on that list. Yeah.
I'm definitely supporting Nicholas. You know, I had been looking for the younger demographic architect, and he's from the Lower Valley, does work throughout the valley. I think he'd be great to have on this board to bring in that demographic. So that's my justification of supporting him. Steve?
So I had been thinking about Forrest. I know Francie had even asked me, what do you think about having a family, one of our family members be on this advisory board? I think he's probably the most knowledgeable about agriculture of anybody on the list, with probably John O. McBride being second. They both have, a lot of experience on ranching operations. And I think that could be invaluable. We could, if we appoint Forrest, we could face some blowback on it, just because he's an adult child of Francie. He's not her kid anymore. He's a grown adult, and but having a foot in the building industry and in the agricultural industry, I think gives a different perspective than anybody else gives, and to me that would be the most important consideration.
Well, and as far as the family connection, for somebody like me who's related to just about everybody in the community, not, through marriage, but still they're family members. Sometimes, it's a small town, and knowing Francie as we've come to know her, I have a feeling her son doesn't tell her what to do a lot of the time.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, or vice versa. So, yeah. So
another consideration is their recommendations are going to our P&Z
first,
and then they are going to be a huge filter on the recommendations of this committee. By the time it gets to us, it's not going to be Forrest Jacober's recommendation to us. It's going to be a big committee of people going through the P&Z board before we see the final recommendation. So I'm not concerned about a sort of a conflict of interest in that respect.
Okay, so let's further discuss these. You want to move on to to a next group, or further discuss this 5 that got 3 votes?
I just got a text from Lydia McIntyre. She asked me to pass on to you guys that she had to have a problem. I'm going to possibly be away December through February. I thought the commitment was 6 months, unless they will allow Zooms. Please let the commissioners know.
That was nice of her. So, looking to the board, do you want to discuss further this top 5 that got 3 votes? Or do we want to leave it open and go to the next group that got 2?
Well, what I have done is circled, these are the hardest 5 in my estimation to pick, the last 5. Because there's
6.
a long list we could pick from. And the 5 that I circled that I think would be my top 5, and maybe I could just toss them out, but other people probably have others.
Wait, so you already moved on to the next group with 2? I want to see where the board wants to go with the group of 3 votes. Do you want to, I'm not seeing, do you guys want to leave it open till we discuss the next group?
Yeah, I would.
Okay. All right. Steve, then go ahead. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Final 5, this would be 21 through 25.
Okay, what are you looking at, Steve?
Would be Brian Hanlon. Mm-hmm. I liked him because he had the experience on Steamboat Springs Planning and Zoning Board, which gives us a different P and Z perspective than our own, and I think that would be important.
Okay.
Debbie Kelly, I was really impressed with her interview today, and I guess, I'm biased towards gardeners who take care of other people's houses, because Molly does the same thing and has the same viewpoints, observing what happens in the house and how how many people come to maintain a house. They have eyes on the world that nobody else kind of does.
Okay, that's 2.
Morgan Boyles. Representing the whole community, having a different perspective from the Castle Creek Valley, coming from a family with such, great ethical standards for looking at things. I picked Rick Stevens based on his record in the valley and all the things that he has done. And then for the 5th one, I picked Charlie Eckert. He's an architect. He also worked for CORE. He has, has done a lot in climate action kind of stuff, so he's almost fits in that camp. But he comes from an architect's point of view on it. So to me, that's valuable, having an architect who thinks about climate change issues and, has tried different things.
Okay, that's your 5 in that next group. So who wants to go next? And then we can come back and discuss where we're not seeing any consensus.
I'll go.
Okay, Kara, am I doing okay? Or do you want to take over?
Doing great.
Okay, just let me know.
I'm pretty much in line with Steve on these. Brian Hanlon, I thought his interview was really interesting. And he knows a lot about land use codes and how to get building permits and how hard that can be and stuff. I also liked Debbie Kelly's interview. I thought if I were going to be on the committee, I would love to have her on the committee. I thought she was great. And Morgan Boyles, I thought was awesome, and he's 32, which is a huge plus. And I had also highlighted Rick Stevens from the other day of interviews. And
that's 3, 4.
And I think Lydia's involvement with conservation easements starting in 1980 is pretty interesting, but the ones that I mentioned are the ones I feel most strongly about.
She's your number 5.
Let's see, I have Brian, Debbie, Morgan, and Rick, yeah.
All right, who wants to go next? And then we'll come back.
Did you have a 5th one?
Well, I said Lydia because.
Kelly, are you going to jump in, or?
Rick.
And Rick, but not sure.
I'll jump in. I guess I think it would have been helpful to work through the tier 2 a little bit more to understand if there were still 3 votes for each of those 5, but we can go back to that. I wouldn't prefer Brian Hanlon. I actually thought that Blake Hansen, also from Hansen Construction, I thought brought a real sincerity and commitment, even though he's further down the list. And then I'm a little concerned about Lydia's ability to see it through now with this new data, but I would have chosen her.
Yeah, I agree.
And Morgan and Rick.
So that is, how many for you? That's only 3, Kelly.
You need, and then, so that was 3, and then I said Blake.
Right, 1, that's your 3rd. And are you picking Lydia or not?
Oh. Yeah, I'll pick her.
Okay.
And we can, I guess, go back.
That's 4, excuse me.
Sorry.
Isn't that 4?
Yeah,
Excuse me.
again, I'm not totally sure where we landed with the tier 2 folks.
Okay, well, there's 5 there, so we can come back. Okay, so Kelly's just, you could just go with 4. We'll come back to it. Greg, do you want to make some selections in that next group?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I appreciate your I see people looking for Mr. Hanlon, who's fairly new to the Valley. He's come from another environment. Maybe that's refreshing, but it's really not, in my opinion, this isn't a building permit streamlining process. And that's what I got from him. If we want a builder who's been in the Valley for a long time, we have other choices. And I think somehow we passed over Doug Throm, who was in the 3 list. Nobody's discussed that. I want to put his name on for that. One, because he's a known entity.
We're not going no, we're not doing list 3. We're just going from 2s down right now. We're going to come back to list 3. That was
no. I'm just putting you're just going from the 2 list, is what you're saying.
Because you
so I can't go back and chose the 3 that was chosen before.
Greg, you were the one who asked us to leave that group open and go to the next group. So I'm only following your advice.
So you're asking me for my final picks?
No, I'm asking you, who would you select in the group 2? And then we'll go back.
Tier 3.
Oh, tier 3. I'm talking 2 votes, tier 3.
Tier 3 is the 2 vote section. Who would I pick from that group?
Yeah.
I'd pick Barb Pitchford or Debbie Kelly and Morgan.
That's 3.
Let's see. And I did like Lydia as well.
Okay, I am going, you ready? I'm going Barb Pitchford. I think having Barb and her experience throughout the community in many ways, her time commitment, the fact she's working now with cities and HPC, so she's getting into the world of development. She's also a very quick learner, and she likes education, to be educated, because that's her field. And I think she'd have a way of trying to bring the community back together, which I think is going to be part of this discussion. I'm going with Morgan Boyles. I think his interview today was great. I'm going to Blake Hansen, bringing the young developer in here who has a commitment to the community and represents that younger generation is of great importance. So that's, 3 for me? Mm-hmm. And Rick Stevens. And I'm only going to do those 4 for right now. Okay, so we're going to open it back. Help steer me through, Steve.
So first off, I really like Blake Hansen also, and since the fact that he and Brian both were from the same company, I couldn't pick 2. But it sounds like there's not strong support for Brian. And I would be glad to have Blake Hansen on there, and I could change my vote on that.
I just changed your vote from that.
So instead of Brian Hanlon.
Okay. So where are we with the tier 2 or the 3 vote getters?
And it sounded like nobody else wanted Charlie Eckert besides me, so
Yeah.
I would just
He's another climate guy in there. Charlie's great.
take him off.
He's an architect.
There was strong support for Lydia McIntyre, and maybe that's instead of Charlie. Let me think about
Steve,
that.
I would change Lydia for Charlie.
You would. Okay.
I would.
Yeah.
Well,
So I'm
okay.
thinking, let's put Lydia on there on our short list and see what it looks like.
So Greg, I moved you to Charlie from Lydia.
So Steve and I just switched positions.
So let's go to the tier 1-3 votes. Doug Throm.
You mean tier 3?
Tier 2.
Tier
3
2.
votes.
We should have done it the other way.
No.
Should have done it the other way.
So Doug Throm.
Are we going to do it by person or by this person? Are we voting? What
This
are we
person
doing?
or this person. I'm just seeing we've got 5 people here who got 3 votes.
So Doug Throm is a longtime Snowmass Village person, very active in the community. He was on their water and sanitation board for a lot of years, and I respect his whole family. And I personally think we ought to put him on there because he represents part of the community that maybe isn't very well, Snowmass Village, I don't think is very well represented at this point, and that would be one good reason to have him on there.
And the rest of that tier, how do you feel?
And I didn't vote for him initially, but I see the benefit, trying to have a well-rounded, with lots of geographic areas represented, to me is important too.
So how do you feel about the rest of that tier?
The one that I have any reservation about, I think, would be John O. McBride. He made a statement. He has his dad's viewpoint towards big houses.
TDRs and TDRs.
And TDRs that they're bad. They're just a bad thing, and maybe he doesn't have an open mind on that. But I think I'd be willing to have him on there. He has lots of experience around the world. He would bring the perspective of having seen a lot of places in Europe, and they do land use differently in Europe than they do here, and I think that perspective could be helpful to our committee.
So
They do land use different at Lost Marbles, so that's a great concern to me.
So is that yes
So
to
Steve,
all
have
five
you
of
lost
us?
your marbles?
Yeah, I could go for all 5 of them.
Okay. Who would like to go next on tier 2, 3 votes?
I'll be yes on all 5 of those.
Okay.
I only have 3 in the other group.
Next, who's going? Discussion on individuals, support, change of mind?
Yeah, I'm okay with those. It seemed like there was a majority that supported them. There's some that I didn't choose, but I guess I'm wondering where we're at with bringing people in and out for the final number.
Right now, if we do this next 5, we're at 20. That gives us 5 random picks from the next page, including Barb Tarbin on the first page. Okay, Greg, how do you feel about that 5?
I'll go along with the group on it.
Okay, so
I said my piece.
we've got that 5, so we're at 20. Now, the decision of the day. I really appreciate Deb Kelly, I've known her for years. I think Debbie Kelly. I think she brings in a different perspective, but I would really like to see us appoint Barb. Yes, I talked to her about applying for this because she asked me about what she could do to be involved at the county level as far as the community, the fractionalization of our community, the diversity, the lack of consensus among the community. I think she would play a great role into bringing all the entities in the community together on this board. And I think that's part of what we're looking for, is that sense of community when we are asking, this is a community advisory group on growth management, so I think we need good representation from a diverse sectors of our community, and I think Barb would really be instrumental in that.
I'd give Barb my 4th vote.
Great, thank you.
Me too.
Barb instead of Debbie?
No, I only had 3 votes. I only had 3 so far in that second group.
So
Okay.
we
So I
have,
gave one to
right
Barb.
now, we
So
have,
that's one of yours,
Yeah.
okay.
right now, we have 4 votes, right?
I think I only have 3.
You didn't vote on the first 5.
Several of them have.
Oh, I supported it, because it's already 4 to.
Okay.
Right now, we have myself, Greg Postman, Francie, and Steve. You would support Barb? Is that?
No, I thought it was Greg who said.
Oh, Greg. Yeah, I
Yeah.
said
Greg?
me, Greg.
But if we're
Francie.
doing 25, does that bump somebody else on? or-
Well, we'll have to see. So let's just see if
Yeah.
you're going to support. Would you support Barb, and we can?
Well, he's done his 5 votes, hasn't he? 1.
Yeah, I'm already at 25 on my list, and
Okay,
I didn't
so-
have Barb on there.
No, you're not. Oh, yeah, you are. You're at 25.
Yeah.
I'll get to her. Thank you. So, okay. So, Francie, we've got you in there. So, Kelly, did you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, we also interviewed Chris Kiley from Skiko, who's like even further down on the list. So I don't know if we want to start to bring those into consideration, because this for me is where I'm not sure we're all going to agree.
You can
I
bring
don't
in
know.
any,
I'm
you
not
can bring
ready
in,
to
you
give
can,
Barb my vote yet.
at this point, you can bring in anybody wants from tier 3 down, because those are gonna be our 5 fillers to get our 25. So tier 3, tier 4, and tier 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 will be our. So Kelly, if you wanna bring that up, that's fine, and we can discuss it. Right now, I think we're just tallying who we're gonna support, and then we'll look at the numbers and bring it back for discussion, hopefully before we have to be at City Hall in an hour. So Kelly, do you want to go on with your position as to the next, our open-ended 5?
Yeah, I liked Lydia, Rick, Morgan, Blake, and Chris.
Chris Kiley?
Yeah.
And
Okay,
who, what was your last one?
Chris Kiley, he's on the second to last page.
He's number 2 down.
He was with,
We had interviewed him.
Skiko. Remember, he was with Skiko's planning.
Top of that 3rd page.
Chris, oh, he's on the last.
So Greg, do you want to wait? So Kelly, how many did you then select out of that?
She's got
She has
5.
5.
She has
That was your 5. Okay, Greg, where are you?
I would, if I'm putting names out here, I'd say Barb, Debbie, Morgan, Rick, and if I have an extra one, I'll go with Charlie Eckert.
Okay.
Right.
I have to pick one.
All right, where are we with board members on this
I
last 5?
have to pick one more.
Let me see do you guys have a
Oh,
tally?
you took Lydia. I have a tally.
You still have 4, Patty.
I have one more I can open up.
Yeah. Craig has
Does somebody
5.
have a spreadsheet they're keeping track of this?
Yeah.
Everyone else has 5, but you have
me?
1 more to give.
No, I don't have 5.
I have you as Barb,
Rick.
Ryan, Debbie, and Lydia. Oh, and Morgan. Oh,
Yeah.
you're right.
Wait.
So I'm gonna take mine off of Brian
Okay.
because I have Morgan and Rick. I think that's fine.
Okay.
Rick, Morgan, Lydia, Debbie, and Barb.
I will
Is that what you
add,
have?
I will add my 5th to Chris Kiley. Okay, so, can you guys give me who's on top, who's in second, or?
So
Morgan for sure.
Morgan is 5 across the board.
Morgan is 5, so Morgan, is everybody comfortable with Morgan then as one of our,
Definitely.
5 or 4.
Yeah.
okay? Next,
Patty, you had Rick.
yeah,
Okay, so Rick is also 5. Is that everyone else's accounting?
Yeah.
Just double
Rick
checking.
and Morgan got 5.
okay, so then we've got 2, so what are our next four getters?
I don't think there are any 4
There are
getters.
no 4s.
Debbie and Barb, I believe, have 4.
3.
I only see 3 and 3 for Debbie
Yeah.
and Barb.
I see Debbie with 3, Lydia with 3,
And Barb with 3.
Barb with 3.
Greg pulled his Lydia vote off for Barb.
Right. And
Yeah.
that leaves Kelly, Francie, and Steve.
Oh,
So we have Barb, Debbie, and Lydia are all at 3.
so that would give us 5.
Yep.
Okay. So let's discuss that. Is the board comfortable going in that way? Or
Now
does
say the
anybody wanna
5
start?
again.
The 5 would be,
Rick,
This is the last 5, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
If you go with those that have 3, it would be Rick, Morgan, Lydia, Debbie, and Barb.
okay,
7 women.
I'm good.
Kelly,
Yeah, I just want to make another plug for Blake.
okay, make it. I actually had Blake in my first round, and then after the interview, looking at Blake and Yeah, and Blake and, no, Brian, oh, Blake, Blake had three.
Yeah, Blake has 3 also, guys.
Because Steve changed his to Blake.
Right, so Blake had 3.
Oh,
so
you're
Blake
right.
has 3
Yeah.
also. I like him too, Kelly. I like some of the things that he said, and I know his family's been in construction for the valley for, well, 30 years that I've been here. So I think he's a valuable person to have.
So who would you take a vote from and put towards?
I don't want to say him because it will be burned.
Oh, don't say that then.
No, you don't want me to say that.
So right now we're at
I
26.
wonder if Barb, is there any overlap between Barb, Debbie, and Lydia in terms of what they offer that someone might move a vote to Blake?
Well, I think that Lydia might have overlap with other entities because of her ranching easement experience, because you've got Forrest and you've got Jono. So, and I'm not sure about her time
Her
commitment.
time commitment is a concern for sure, because if August, September, October, November, that's 4 months before she leaves.
And then the finals, we're saying 6 months, so she'd miss the last 2 critical.
But there will be a virtual option to attend the
Right,
meeting.
but it still makes a difference when you're in the room, you know how I
Yeah.
feel about that. So, where are we gonna go on this, guys? Because this is not easy decision, but at least we're deliberating it in the public. So.
I was happy with where we were. There was a comment early on that it seemed like there just weren't enough women on this, and it seemed like this is a healthy way to round out the women on the group, and I'm comfortable with it.
But we've got 26 right now if we go with 3 votes.
I'm looking for other construction people. So really, we have Max Felis, is that his name?
Yep.
I can show you a breakout of the 26.
We have Doug Throm. And Forrest is in construction, but really he's
We're looking at
ranching
him
is-
more for the
Yeah,
cows.
agriculture, yeah. So that's 2.
And Blake would make 3.
So here on your screen is the 26 that have 3 or more votes that we just went through.
God, you did that fast.
He's good.
He's amazing.
good.
God, really? You just did that?
Yeah, well, we were updating them real
You
time.
can't, you're not allowed to leave the county, just so you
No, he's already an indentured servant upstairs on the 2nd floor. We only let so many go a year, so you guys all need to know.
So yeah, your land use planners, attorneys are sitting just a little over 11%. Resident property owners, resident property owners 15%. Individuals working in the climate change space 11%. Representing broad community values 26%. Development community 15%. Real estate's got a little under 4%. And then the other would round out, individuals with agriculture also a little under 4%.
Yeah, contractors and architects being in the same group, I guess that makes sense. And developers.
Would you guys,
Planners, realtors.
would you guys like to consider starting with 26, knowing that we might have some attrition? Because you're down to such,
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that because, I'm giving up some, I think it's all give and take here. I mean, there's, if I wanted my way, I would have just said, this is what we're going with, but it's a 5-member board. So I'm good at 26. I know we didn't want a round number, and we said we wouldn't go above 25, but rather than start, Major League Baseball trading here, I think we should make a decision and go with 26. If we're gonna keep Lydia on, right?
That is including,
Yeah, because but still, I'm not sure
Okay, I mean, I feel kind of like Lydia's like, maybe I shouldn't, sort of. I'm reading her text.
it starts out, I have a problem.
Yeah, I know.
That kind of gives it away.
Yeah.
My guess is we're going to see other people that are traveling in the next 6 months also. This is a pretty mobile community. So she's just the first one who contacted us. If we want to reach out to all of them and ask us what their travel plans are in the next 6 months, we can get a clearer idea.
No, I don't know what my travel plans are for next week. So.
Right, I think that's my point, Patty.
Yeah, so do we want to just stay with 26 then? Is that okay?
What do you think, Kelly? You were the one who said no more than 25.
Yeah, but now I'm the one horse trading. Yeah, I think it's Blake would bring a good voice.
Okay. So you were horse trading. I was baseball major league player trading. So we good with that, guys? Staff brought it back to us as a recommendation that would be okay.
Not staff.
Your consultant.
Your consultant brought it back.
Advised us. And by the way, she was on time for the meeting, so we're good. Are we okay, guys?
Getting better.
Don't everybody answer me all at once, please.
I'm fine with it.
Okay, Kelly's moving her fingers. I know she's thinking.
Sorry, I said I was fine. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Kelly.
Well, you know me, I'd rather have
Steve's
21.
squinching his face and twisting
That's
his earlobe.
one of my fly bites I'm
Yeah.
itching.
All right, we good?
Are you, yes? Are you okay with 26?
I would rather have 25, but 26, 25, I was thinking some of them are going to start traveling at some point, and they're going to have poor internet connections maybe, and that might be part of our attrition, that there just won't be, we're not going to have all the members at all the meetings anyhow.
I'd rather have 21, but given that we can't have 21, I'd rather have 15, but given that we can't have 21,
I think we have a good group.
I'm okay with it. But
Okay, before we make a final nod here, I'm gonna look at staff. Are you guys okay with where we're going, what we've done? Is there anything more? Again, it's really your show and I took it over and I apologize.
Just for other issues.
No, I think for your selection, I think we feel good with 26, and it'll be hybrid because we know it's a hybrid space, so we'll work on spaces and all that, so.
Okay, is the board good? Yeah.
I have other logistic things that are still to
Okay,
wrap
she
up.
has some other things, but before we close this part out, I'm seeing that the board is okay moving forward with the 26 we've selected. I just want to make it public that I think I can speak for the board, how appreciative we are of all of the applicants, that people took their time and commitment to these applications. And we really appreciate that. I will keep my 3-ring binder. So if something comes up as to if we want to look at a hybrid committee on something, we can actually go back through. Or if we're not going to bring in more members to this initial group because of the learning curve. And we're not going to be starting over trying to educate people, because then everybody else who's been there from the beginning is going to walk out by saying, I've already heard it. So we need to be really careful about that. But it's amazing how many people in our community come forward for whatever their reasons, whatever their demographics they represent, but they come forward when they see something of interest that they can be involved in the efforts of Pickens County. Okay? Okay,
Great.
logistics.
Okay, a couple logistical items. So with that, we will be reaching back out to all those that you selected, and then we'll bring it forward at your July 27th regular meeting for formal appointments. And then want to make sure it's on all of the commissioners' calendars that we will be planning to do a kickoff with the board and this committee on August 17th, and we'll get you that information. But it will be 4 to 6 on August 17th.
What day of the
4
week?
till 6 on
Yeah.
August.
Is that a Tuesday?
A
What is it?
Wednesday.
What's a Wednesday? Oh, do you guys, do they have APSHA?
Oh,
You already checked that out?
nope, we'll double check that.
Okay. All right. Anything else from the board? No, staff, John, Skylar. Good luck to you, Skylar.
Thank you.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm excited. It's a great opportunity for you, and I'm glad you're taking it on. And we'll all
Stay
come
cool,
visit.
Skylar.
Yeah, stay cool and stay away from the fires. All right.
Do my
So, so I guess I can adjourn this. We're done, right? And we're gonna move. We're gonna move on. Okay, everybody. 4 o'clock. Are you guys going to City Hall? Or are you zooming?
Oh, I'm going.
Okay. All right, Greg. Let us
Right
know.
next door.
Let us
Why
know what
would I
happens
zoom?
with you, Greg. Kelly, how's your dad?
I'm the link, then you can help me find it. I don't.
Okay. Thank you. Somebody send Greg the link? John, do you have the link for?